You may think you know the tale of Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, but not as it truly unfolded. Dive into the authentic story that took place in the enigmatic village of Morrowsight in 1687. In the village of Morrowsight, where the edges of reality blur into the mystical, tales of old were whispered with bated breath. One such tale was that of a girl named Red and the haunting shadow of the wolf. Red, with her fiery hair and a cloak to match, was known throughout Morrowsight for her fearless ventures into the Whispering Woods. These woods, dark and dense, were said to be cursed, with shadows that whispered and winds that carried lamenting songs. But Red, with her youthful audacity, often dismissed these tales as mere folklore. Her grandmother, an old seer, often warned her of the woods. "The trees see all and the shadows hear all," she'd say, her voice trembling like the last leaf of autumn. But Red, armed with a basket of crimson berries and her iconic cloak, would venture into the woods, drawn by an inexplicable pull. One fateful evening, as the sun bade goodbye, casting long, eerie shadows, Red entered the woods. The path, usually familiar, seemed different. The trees, taller and more twisted, their branches like gnarled fingers, seemed to close in on her. The wind carried whispers, each one echoing the last, forming a cacophony of voices that seemed to come from the very depths of the forest. As she ventured deeper, a thick fog enveloped the woods. Each step felt heavier, and the once clear path now seemed like a maze. It was then that she heard it, a low growl echoing through the trees, sending a shiver down her spine. From the depths of the fog emerged the wolf, his eyes a piercing shade of yellow, his fur as dark as the night. But this was no ordinary wolf. He stood on his hind legs, towering over Red, his shadow merging with the darkness of the woods. Red, paralyzed by fear, could only watch as the wolf approached. But instead of attacking, he spoke, his voice a deep rumble. "Why do you venture into my domain, child of Morrowsight?" Red, gathering her courage, replied, "I seek the heart of the woods, a flower said to possess the power to heal any ailment. My grandmother is ill and only the heart can save her." The wolf, intrigued, said, "The heart of the woods is not a prize to be won. It is protected by the spirits of the forest, and only those deemed worthy can possess it." Determined, Red said, "I am willing to face any challenge to save my grandmother." The wolf, seeing her determination, proposed a deal. "I will guide you to the heart of the woods, but in return you must promise to never venture into the forest again." Red, seeing no other option, agreed. As they journeyed deeper into the woods, the world around them changed. The trees seemed to come alive, their branches swaying to an unseen rhythm. The fog cleared, revealing a glade bathed in moonlight. At its center stood a flower, its petals a radiant shade of blue, emitting a soft glow, the heart of the woods. But as Red approached, the ground trembled. From the shadows emerged the spirits of the forest, their forms ethereal, their eyes glowing with ancient magic. They circled Red, their voices echoing, "Why do you seek the heart, child of Morrowsight?" Red, her voice unwavering, replied, "To save my grandmother, the last seer of Morrowsight." The spirits, sensing her pure intentions, allowed her to take the flower. But they warned, "The heart possesses great power, but with it comes a price. Use it wisely." With the heart in her possession, Red, guided by the wolf, made her way back to the village. But as they reached the edge of the woods, the wolf stopped. "Remember your promise," he growled, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and longing. Red nodded, her heart heavy with gratitude and sorrow. She returned to her grandmother, using the heart's power to heal her. But as the old seer recovered, she whispered a warning to Red. "The heart's magic is bound to the forest. By taking it, you have bound your fate to the woods." Years passed, and the village of Morrowsight prospered. But Red, now a young woman, felt a constant pull towards the woods. Each night, she'd dream of the wolf, his haunting eyes filled with a silent plea. One fateful night, unable to resist the call, Red ventured into the woods. The trees, now familiar, welcomed her, their branches parting to reveal a path. As she reached the glade, she found the wolf, waiting, but he was not alone. Beside him stood a figure, her form ethereal, her eyes a radiant shade of blue, the spirit of the heart of the woods. The spirit spoke, her voice a soft whisper. "You are now a part of the forest, bound by the heart's magic. You and the wolf are its guardians, protectors of its secrets." Red, realizing her fate, embraced her new role. With the wolf by her side, she became a legend, a guardian of the Whispering Woods, her tale whispered for generations in the village of Morrowsight. The tale of Red and the Wolf became a cornerstone of Morrowsight's lore. Parents would recount it to their children, adding their own twists and turns. But the core message remained the same. The forest, with its ancient magic and mysteries, was to be respected, not feared. As the years turned into decades and the decades into centuries, Morrowsight grew and evolved. But the Whispering Woods remained unchanged, a constant reminder of the village's rich history and the bond between Red and the Wolf. The villagers, while respectful of the woods, were also curious. Many ventured into its depths, seeking adventure and knowledge. Some returned with tales of magical creatures and hidden treasures, while others spoke of dark shadows and haunting whispers. But through it all, one thing remained constant: the presence of Red and the Wolf. They were now more myth than reality, their figures etched into the very trees of the forest. They were the guardians, the protectors of the woods, and their legacy lived on. Generations passed, and the world around Morrowsight changed. New technologies emerged, and the village, once isolated, became a hub of trade and commerce. But the Whispering Woods, with its ancient magic, remained untouched. The villagers, now more modern and less superstitious, began to question the tales of Red and the Wolf. They were seen as mere legends, stories to entertain children. But the elders, those who had lived long enough to remember the old ways, knew better. They spoke of a time when the balance between the village and the woods was maintained, when the magic of the forest was respected and revered. They warned of the consequences of forgetting the past and urged the younger generation to remember the tales of Red and the Wolf. But as with all warnings, they went unheeded. The younger generation, driven by curiosity and a sense of invincibility, began to venture deeper into the woods. They sought to uncover its secrets, to harness its magic for their own gain. This did not go unnoticed. The forest, sensing the intrusion, began to fight back. Trees became more twisted, shadows grew darker, and the once clear paths became mazes of confusion. The village, once prosperous, began to face hardships. Crops failed, livestock perished, and a sense of unease settled over Morrowsight. The elders, realizing the gravity of the situation, called for a council. They spoke of the need to restore the balance, to appease the forest and its guardians. They spoke of the old rituals, the sacrifices, and the offerings that were once made to the woods. But the younger generation, skeptical and dismissive, refused to listen. They saw the rituals as outdated and superstitious, relics of a bygone era. The rift between the two generations grew, and the village became divided. Tensions rose and conflicts erupted. Morrowsight, once a beacon of harmony and unity, was now on the brink of collapse. It was during these dark times that a figure emerged from the woods. Cloaked in red, with fiery hair and piercing eyes, she walked into the village. Beside her stood the wolf, his form imposing, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. The villagers, recognizing the figures from the tales, fell silent. Red, her voice echoing with the weight of centuries, spoke of the need to remember the past, to respect the forest and its magic. She spoke of the bond between Morrowsight and the woods, a bond that had been forged over generations. She urged the villagers to come together, to set aside their differences and work towards restoring the balance. The wolf, in his own way, echoed her sentiments. He spoke of the forest's wrath, of the consequences of forgetting the old ways. He warned of the dangers that lay ahead if the balance was not restored. The villagers, realizing the gravity of the situation, heeded their words. They came together, setting aside their differences, and worked towards restoring the balance. Rituals were performed, offerings were made, and the forest, sensing the change, began to heal. The trees straightened, the shadows lightened, and the paths cleared. Morrowsight, once on the brink of collapse, began to prosper again. The village, with its rich history and deep-rooted connection to the woods, stood as a testament to the power of unity and the importance of remembering the past. Red and the Wolf, having fulfilled their roles, returned to the forest, but their presence was always felt, their legacy living on in the tales and legends of Morrowsight. And so, the tale of the girl in the crimson cloak and the guardian wolf continued, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the eternal bond between humanity and nature. Please like and subscribe for more twisted fairy tales.